What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Top Lax Recruits podcast. We are on to episode 6. Still hard to believe we're that far in. We took a little bit of a hiatus last week to line up some epic guests for you, and this show coming up right now is no exception to that. We've covered goalies, we've covered a lot of different positions, but the one position that we wanted to make sure we get to, because there's a lot of interesting storylines behind it, is the face-off position. So in the era of Fogos and face-off midfielders and face-off really specialization, we have one of the origin stories, basically himself, coming on the show today. Before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about Top Lax Recruits. We are across all social media platforms, TikTok, X, Instagram, wherever you're consuming your media. Check out Top Lax Recruits. We are your one-stop shop for all your recruiting needs, all the way down to commitment graphics. We are the media hub showing highlights, really epic, kind of feats in lacrosse and everything in your lacrosse journey. We are here to support you. So head on over to Top Lax Recruits on social media or toplaxrecruits.com. And we are going to jump right into a little bit of information about our guest here today. We are bringing on Jerry Ragonese. Guys, I really hope you've heard his name before. He is a journeyman and kind of an epic figure in the face-off position in lacrosse history. I know for myself growing up, learning about the face-off position a lot, Jerry was a prime resource, and really, talking to him in this episode, we realized that he saw a void of resources and wanted to fill that void and kind of create an opportunity for individuals to train. And that's where the Faceoff Academy came from. So Jerry is the co-founder of the Faceoff Academy, also the co-founder of Pro Athletics. They do some incredible helmet decals and uniforms and everything. Some of the highest level teams and kind of the best uniforms you've seen out there might just be Pro Athletics. Along with that, he has a new business venture, the Mulus brand. Jerry, I hope I'm saying that correct. You can check him out on Instagram through all those ventures right there. But the reason Jerry's coming on today is his lacrosse knowledge, and specifically his face-off knowledge. Jerry attended Rochester Institute of Technology because he was interested in videography and photography and kind of the whole media landscape, which really led him into an incredible lacrosse career in a bit of a non-traditional way. Originally going there as a midfielder, then kind of got converted to the face-off guy, which led him on a long professional lacrosse journey in both the PLL and the former MLL, which is a great storyline within itself on this episode right here. I won't take any more of your time, as this episode is a must listen for any lacrosse historian, any face-off guy, and really anyone wanting to learn more about the game of lacrosse. Without further ado, let's jump into our episode with Jerry Ragonese. What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Top Lax Recruits podcast. Today, we are joined by a face-off guru that everybody knows, a familiar face, a lot of major stops, RIT, the MLL, the PLL, literally everywhere, you think face-offs, you think of you, Jerry. So Jerry Ragonese, welcome on to the show. We're excited to have you and pick your face-off brain.
Thanks for having me, Tucker. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just start out, man. Why face-off? What led you to become a face-off guy? Was that the immediate destination for you, or was there a long journey to becoming a face-off guy?
Uh, s- Kind of a long, short, at least in my career. I started out as a two-way midi. I was one of the more athletic kids in my high school. Played football, hockey, and baseball. All my buddies were playing lacrosse, and they were like, "You should come play. Quit playing baseball. Um, Come on out, try it out." And there's a very famous indoor league here out in New Jersey where they play like 7-on-7. And I picked up a stick, scored a goal like my first time out, and I was like, "Oh, this is the." And I get to hit people like it's hockey, and it was awesome. I was like, "Yeah, this is a sport I want to play the rest of my life." So I picked it up my sophomore year, and never wanted to put the stick down. I would play varsity, I'd play JV. You couldn't get me off the field. I was shooting holes in my parents' fence because there was no nets anywhere. Um, the Mark Millen offensive wizardry VHS tape, really dating myself. VHS tape was like a Bible to me. I had the same Adidas cleats he was wearing. Um, so that was everything to me in high school. And then I was like, well, I want to play in college. And, it wasn't, the recruiting scene wasn't what it is today. It was kind of like, go to champ camp, see if you can get seen. And I really didn't know any of that. So what I did was, and again, my coach credits me as the pioneer, but I very much doubt I'm the first guy to do this. I made my own highlight tape. We were one of the first high schools back in like 2002, 2003 that had like somebody who just sit up there with like one of those handy cams, and I would chop up all the film and put together a highlight tape, put music to it, burnt it onto DVDs, and I was just like mailing it to coaches. The coach was like, some coaches was like, "Hey, like we don't want you, but this is like one of the coolest things we've ever seen. Good luck." I was like, "Oh, that's a really interesting, you know, response to getting a tape." But had a couple D1 looks, Monmouth, Rutgers, back when Rutgers wasn't the powerhouse they were today. Um, Towson a little bit, a couple other ones that I can't even remember anymore, Salve Regina. And then RIT wound up being up there, and I wanted to be a photographer and videographer. So that was the best opportunity for lacrosse and my major. So that's how I got up there. And when I got up to RIT, that's all upstate boys. That's West Jenny. That's, that whole pipeline of incredible schools, and I'd never seen that kind of skill. I started the high school program when I was at Governor Livingston. So like, we saw really good athletes, but we hadn't seen poles picking up and throwing behind the back. I was like awestruck when I got to college. And basically they were like, you were the least skilled player on this roster, but you're the most athletic. Like I was the only guy that passed all the lifting and run tests. I was pretty fast in the open space. I just didn't know the game because I'd only been playing for 3 years, and God bless my high school coaches, want for us to get better, but he just wasn't, upstate lacrosse guy at the time. And if you weren't from Long Island, upstate, or Maryland, lacrosse was kind of a peripheral at the time in like the '05. And so he was like, well, I can't cut you because you're the only guy that passed all these tests. And that would look bad for us. But he's like, I don't know what to do with you because you don't know the game. So like, why don't you go over there with the Faceoff guys and like kind of figure that out? I was like, okay. So I went and figured that out. I sat behind two All-Americans for a pretty long time when I was in college, and, just fell in love with it and made it more than just a position. I wanted to learn and teach it, and kind of came up with a whole bunch of stuff. And it was very much like black magic back in the day, like finding out these like random things. Like I'd be like calling these like Chris Cersei and Alex Smith and all these random dudes online. I would try and like find their emails, like, hey, like I'm a face-off guy. Can you tell me something on like how to win? And guys would tell you, hey, you gotta bake the head to melt the plastic so the head sits flat on the ground. So it was like there's very much like a den of thieves back then. And it was very fun for me, my ADHD, to kind of like go down that very deep rabbit hole. So long story short, wasn't always, but for the remainder of my career, so like for like 5 years I played midfielder, and the 13 after I was a face-off midfielder.
Yeah, I love the position, man. I think your description and your journey reminds me of so many guys who end up on, really deep talented rosters, but they're like the peak athletes on the team, and they end up becoming incredible face-off guys. And I wish for so many of those guys, I'm like, man, I wish you would have realized this earlier. I just wonder, what would have happened. And it's the most interesting thing. But, you alluded to this perfectly, but yeah, you were researching and researching and researching and, consuming all this knowledge about the position or trying to find knowledge. What led to the Faceoff Academy and kind of the instructional level for you? And now, having this army of these athletes who are face-off athletes, which is still remarkable to me.
Yeah. So very early on, there was no information about this. There was just like either you would like kind of you get on the field and you could do it, and it was like face off by committee. And if you had a guy who had like even basic knowledge, he could just tear apart an entire roster and take over a game. So there was myself and Greg Renly and Chris Madison. We were all playing pro at the time. And we were doing like private lessons and stuff like that. I remember sitting on the field. I could sit on the field for 10 hours and do private lessons. And because I'm just like out in the hot sun and, blowing whistles, watching kids clamp, and that, like, I don't care what anybody says. You do 7 hours of private lessons. You do 7 hours of anything. You're like, okay, I could use a break. So we kind of put our heads together and said, hey, we're all doing this. How can we make this a better situation? Because these kids are facing off against us. They're not going to beat pros. How do we build this out to be a better situation? So we kind of made like these little like clubs, and we're like, hey, these groups of kids, they're like facing off. We should get together, put together a curriculum, kind of figure out like how we're going to teach these guys. And it was at a Chipotle in Westfield, and me and Mattis were like, all right, what are we going to call it? We're going to call it the Faceoff Academy. We're like, all right, who do we call? We're like, let's call Greg. And from there, the rest is history. And like, I don't want to say like it was like a groundbreaking, ingenious thing because we were just doing what we were doing, but the position was so much of an afterthought, and people didn't want to take it seriously. I remember like a year in, we got a call to do the presentation at LaxCon, RIP LaxCon. And they're like, oh, the referees want to do like a round table. We're like, oh my gosh, we'd love to talk to the officials. And we sat there and we were like, hey, listen, we want to it's our goal to eradicate cheating. And a referee just literally stands up and laughs and walks out of the room because it was guys were so uninterested in hearing anything other than the status quo. And, we were like, okay, well, we're on to something here. I think we can do good works. And, it wasn't an overnight success by any means. It was a lot of hustle. I remember we were doing clinics like Friday, we'd be in Boston, then like we'd finish at 9. And then we were supposed to be Saturday morning at 9 a.m. in Maryland. We drive, all three of us would drive down there, we get to the hotel, it'd be 2 beds. Me and Chris are like, little spoon because Greg was the big guy. We're like, so it was kind of it was a crazy time back in the day. But yeah, that's kind of the genesis of it.
Oh, it's amazing, man. I mean, you and I had talked a little bit about just, I have one of your former face-off athletes here and seeing, the training in him and the technicality and the skill is remarkable. And it still blows a lot of guys that we compete, out of the water because they haven't had that individualized training. They really haven't been taught to be specific face-off guys. And I think that, you and Greg and Chris and really a lot of face-off guys now, you've been amazing, facilitators of the position and sharing a lot online, on X, on YouTube, everywhere. You guys have put this knowledge out there for people to start digesting, but then to see, the impact of that direct coaching, it's remarkable, which kind of leads me to my next question, Jerry. What do you think, college coaches look for in face-off guys now, or what are you seeing now that maybe differs from, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago? What's the approach to going out and recruiting a face-off guy?
Like 10 years ago, it used to be if you could face off well, like pick your school, you're going big time. Like God bless. Like it doesn't matter what you look like, what your grades are. It was kind of like, it was a get out of jail free card. Now it's recruited like every other position. If you are better at everything else, including the position, you're going to be more highly vaulted. So if you're like, a 6'2" mutant who has great face-off hands, but is also like a super genius, like a Luke Engelke at Duke, who also had 170 points when he was in high school. Okay, well, like it's great that you're a face-off guy, but we really like you because of everything else. So it's very much like every other position now, where, like as a goalie, you're judged on your ability to stop the ball. You're recruited on everything else that you can do. And that's how I look at the face-off position. It's like, listen, it's great that you can win a face-off. That's the minimum barrier to entry to doing this. But like, what are your counters like? What happens when you lose? Are you a weight room leader? Are you a locker room leader? Are you a classroom leader? Can you sit and play comparable defense? Are you comfortable with the ball in your stick? Those are all major add-ons to that. To that face-off base model, so to speak. It's like, it's like getting a car. It's like, okay, like, you see the car driving super fast, it looks awesome, and then it says at the bottom, with other options shown. You're like, okay, well, I know I'm paying more for those other options. So that's kind of how I look at the face-off position today, is like, you can't just be a Fogo. The Fogo's been dead, which I love. I know there's still a couple of those guys out there, but like their skill sets are so much more advanced than it was 10 years ago, where guys were like, hey, I can't pass and catch. I'm going to go sit in the corner. It's like, you can't pass and catch. Get out of here. Like, you're not going to make it through the first week of practice.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. And then I think you kind of hit on one piece there too. I think anyone that is, maybe new to lacrosse or getting into lacrosse, if they see a high level face-off guy, they're going to notice the physical differences, fitness wise, a lot of times of face-off guys compared to just your general player out there. And I would say maybe the comparison could be drawn between like a high level D mid and a face-off guy. The training regimen for, somebody to become good at face-off, obviously a lot of that is fitness, is weight room, is all that kind of stuff. Is there anything that you personally have used in your training regimen that has helped you with the face-off that is non-lacrosse related, or something maybe that you share with, athletes and people like that to, boost their training game to then be a better face-off guy?
Um, there's no like secret like woo woo thing. Like I like to say you want to be stupid to be in this position because you can't let the thoughts kind of get in your head. Oh my God, I lost four in a row. Well, you're not. There's no grand slam you can hit. So this isn't baseball where you're going to get four runs in one swing. So you
Right.
have to start chipping away. That takes a mental. The position takes a mental toll on guys. So it's like it's really important to I don't want to say meditate. Like I've never been like a journaler, but I understand aspects of that. But I always say, like stay stupid. You want to be a golden retriever. You're so excited they're going to throw the ball again that you don't care how many times you've chased it before. Um, and I think that's like I would go out and play games and I would have no idea how I was doing. I know if like I won the last like two or three, but I would have no idea for the most part how I'd fit on the day.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's a really important way of looking at the position because the most important face off is the next one. It doesn't matter that you won the last four. Like it's very funny that like it's the only position where like, hey man, we need this one. No shit. I know. I'm going out there. I'm trying. It's like attackman can take 60 shots and score two goals, but if I don't win every faceoff, it's like dude, why didn't you just? What do you mean? I'm trying? Like I'm not going slower. I'm not saving anything for you. Um, so it's a position of incredible. Every eye is on you. It's you versus you. You're never getting help from your wings, or very rarely, if ever. And most of the time they're hindrance. You're running into them. So it's there's the mental capacity of it, but it's still like lacrosse related. And then just good old fashioned like continuing to do the thing that you're going to do on the field. Like there's so many like, hey, should I get a weighted shaft? Should I put sand in my stick? Should I do this other activity to make myself better? Dude, if juggling made you a good face-off guy, then every hibachi chef at Benihana would be playing in the PLL. This has nothing to do like, oh, hand eye, dude. You can fit. I can. All right, I just clamped on the ball. Like I don't need hand eye. The ball it doesn't move. Um, so I'm less about adding and I'm more about subtracting. I think there's in sports in general, not just the face off. The face off for me because I see it every day and I'm like, this drill is so dumb. You're wasting time, but if it makes you happy, God bless. But in sports in general, everybody's trying to like add on. Oh my gosh, if you do this, this is intrinsic to this part of the game. It's like, dude, Tom Brady threw the ball every day in practice. He just hummed the ball deep. He threw it hard. He made sure he rehabbed things appropriately. And that's why he's the GOAT. And he also had like an unbelievable, fierce, never die spirit. Like you plug doing the thing you're gonna do in with never die, and you're just consistently trying to be better and better and better. There's no way you don't make it to at least the next rung on the ladder. I'm not going to say you're going to reach the top, but everybody's looking for a secret, and that's not just with lacrosse; it's with all athletes and all people in general. Oh, there's a pill that's going to make you skinny. Okay, well, give me that instead of just not eating ice cream. Um, apply that to sports in general, and like that's kind of my philosophy. So like I think you should face off 2 to 3 days a week. I think it should be mostly, I call it shadow boxing. It's you go to the ball, you move the ball, then you stop. You shouldn't be getting jammed up and slashed and guys diving at your ankles. I think that's set for the season and games. And again, that's load management. But I'm 38 years old. Coming up, I'm 39. I take 6 hours of face offs a week with high school kids. Like it's not that demanding. Um, it's not that demanding on the body, although my hamstrings are a little tight. But it's that's just me being old. Uh, you can do that and really hone and sharpen the blade. But like juggling, ball bounces, like if you want to do that because that's your thing, I'm all for it. But I'm just a huge believer in the Tom Brady, the or another great one is Alexander Ovechkin. What does Alexander Ovechkin do? He gets to the point and he slaps the hell out of the puck. If you can do that, you don't have to do other stuff good. It's great that he can, but if that until they can beat you at that one thing, keep going to it. And I believe if you have a talent, you keep going to the well until they stop you. And then you also have another set of tricks up your sleeve. And that doesn't mean cheating. It means having other skill sets, which is I can track the ball down well. I'm really good at countering, or I have a good bottom rail opportunity, or I'm great with the ball on my stick, whatever it is. But be undeniable. Don't come in and be like, oh my gosh, I've been juggling so well, or I've been hang cleaning a ton of weight. Like, dude, that's great. Speed kills at the face off. It's like you're going to see a lot less guys built like Greg, Trevor, me, as any of the MLL guard of old, because it's not a wrestling match anymore. It's a skill and technique and precision and much more like mixed martial arts, which is it's problem solving in real time with physical consequences. That's how I look at the face off, just like a little less because we have pads on. And I stole that from somebody. I think Dana White said that or something. And I was like, oh, I could use that for face offs. So that's how I look at it. It's problem solving. There's always something you can do better. When something's going really well, it means you're probably getting weak at something else. And if something's going really bad, you could probably be doing better at something else as well. So, in a very long run on sentence where I haven't really breathed at all, that's my thoughts on that.
That's great. Those are great thoughts. I think the most important thing to pull out of there, yeah, is the determination and following what works. And I think that we've talked about this a lot on the podcast with previous guests, but we are in an era of sports where a lot of people want to oversaturate a lot of things to find the same result. And I think the thing that lacks a lot of times in those outreaches is determination, is work ethic, is the desire to be great. And I think you just kind of hit on that perfectly there. I want to talk a little bit about your journey from RIT, from the Division III ranks up through the MLL and the PLL, and just really, that transition kind of from being a D3 guy to then kind of going through the pro ranks. When did that become, reality for you? When was like, okay, I'm going to go in the MLL? Was there a moment that kind of set in, an interaction that you recall being kind of influential in there? And then, what was it like, getting to, the pro ranks after being at RIT?
Yeah, so like my senior year at RIT, I was 23. I did a fifth year. I broke my shoulder. I came back and was blessed enough to get my eligibility back after I think I was 1% over the limit at the time, by minutes. Yeah. And I got awarded the time. My dad's like, "Hey, are you gonna go back to school?" And I was like, "If you let me." He's like, "Yeah, you're going back to school." I was like, "Okay, cool." So I got to do that extra year, live out my dream. And again, I was a bench rider for 4 years. Please, if you look at my stats at RIT, you have to go to the next page to see that I actually played lacrosse at RIT, because it just looks like 2005 to 2009, and my shoulder broke. So I got 30 faceoffs. How'd this guy make it to the pros? But you go to the next year, I took 600 faceoffs, 400 ground balls, and didn't play any fourth quarters because we were so damn good that year. My coach would keep me from getting burnt out, so to speak. So I always hold a grudge against Kuhn that imagine I could have hit 1,000. But after that, I was just so enamored and so in love with the game. I was like, well, I don't want this to end. I'm like, I think I'm pretty good, but I don't know. I would play summer ball versus the Hopkins guys and pickup leagues in New Jersey. I'm like, I beat these guys, and those are the guys who go pro. And let me try to figure this out. And Jake Kuhn was a Rattlers alumni, and I was at RIT. The Rattlers were down the street, and just so happened that they have an open. The team came back that year from they folded the team. They became the Ohio Machine. Then the Ohio Machine folded, and they became the Rochester Rattlers. So that was the Ned Crotty, Anthony Kelly era. And so I'm like, well, the Rattlers are back. Let me see what this is about. And I went to an open tryout, and they were there was 20 face-off guys, and it wound up being me and two guys just kicking the shit out of each other. And we're like, okay, those are the two guys. So they invited us to camp, which was really exciting. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Anthony Kelly. I watched this guy when he was on the LA Riptide. I was really into lacrosse. Not star-studded. Ned Crotty and I played hockey against each other growing up. I always hated him. I'm like, Ned Crotty, that Susan, he went to Del Barton, doesn't know public schools wound up being my best friend. The night, if you find a person that doesn't like Ned Crotty, that's an indictment on the person who doesn't like Ned, because Ned is the most guy on the planet. And I was always just mad at him because I would go cross player in New Jersey, and I would just read the newspaper, waiting to see my 1 and 2 game. It'd be Ned Crotty 8 points again. It's I'm so sick of reading this guy. We had a good laugh about it. But I wound up making it through camp, and it wound up being me and Anthony Kelly for that year. And I learned a ton under Anthony, and Anthony's still a very dear friend to this day. I go to Hawaii with him to play on the Wimmer team. I thank him more for getting me on this roster than, he did giving feedback about me on the Rattlers, those years ago. But I think I was right place, right time, and just had the want to do it, because you had to really want to play pro lacrosse back in the day. I'd be doing airport runs. Listen, call me a glorified, assistant for the Rattlers. I'll take it. I'm picking up Jordan McBride from the airport, Ned Crotty, us going to get food. Jordan like couldn't get over the border, so he'd sleep at my house for a couple of days. Like whatever we had to do just to make it work. Um, that was like my very humble beginnings. And the only reason I ever got in a game was because Anthony Kelly's flight got like delayed, and they were like, "Jared, can you get over here?" I was literally eating like a burrito, and they're like, "Yo, you got to play tonight." And I was like, "Oh," I just like threw up in a trash can, and went out to play against like Jeff Snyder, who was one of the all-time greats. He's like, "Oh, buddy, I'll punch you square in the mouth." Like Jeff's like now one of my like best friends. I, call him all the time. We scream at each other. Um, so it's like it's a very funny. If you were in that puddle of pro lacrosse, you're making $300 a game, and then you go play credit card roulette like I did, and you go to the bar and they're like, "Oh, 20 mind erasers, who's credit card roulette?" And I lose, I'm the rookie. I'm like, okay, that's half my salary. But I wouldn't change it for the world. And then kind of after that, I was like, I'm hooked. This is what I'm doing from now on. Living up in Rochester, did the whole season, went back the next year, made it to camp again. And then that was the year 2012 when Charlotte came on, and they went through like 9 face-off guys in like 3 weeks or something. It was like crazy. And they're like, they traded for me. I came down. I was actually in California working, and they're like, "Hey, like we just traded you to Charlotte. You got to be on the next flight out." I'm like, "What? Okay." So they put me in like row 60 on like on those Dreamliners. So like I'm literally like it's a red eye flight. I'm literally sitting up like this. I have to be a walkthrough, not even practice walkthrough at 9 a.m. This is how I slept going to play. Going actually playing Rochester. In Rochester that day. So that was like my real welcome to the league thing. I had to beat out the starter at walkthrough to see if I was going to play that night. I was like, "Guys, what is this?" And very lucky that I had the opportunity to play, did pretty good. And then just kind of ping ponged around for a little bit, found myself in the Wizards, and that was my home. I'd moved back to New Jersey. And got on the same team with my business partner Greg Gorenly, and it was just kind of we just did the two-headed monster thing till 2018. We won a MLL championship. That was really cool, with that absolute monster Lizards roster that I had no business being on. It's actually our 10-year reunion. I keep texting Paul. I'm like, "Paul, you gonna pick up an open bar tab for the boys?" He's on it. We're gonna get him. We're gonna get him. He's just a busy guy, but he's into it. I know he's very proud of that year as well. I can't believe it's been 10 years. But and then like 2017, things really started slowing down in the MLL, like the ownership change, and then and again, I'm all about the business of the sport, and we're watching kind of the behind the door like lacrosse network thing that was like really tough to get over and understand. Like even when you could get into it, it wasn't working well. And God bless all those people that worked there; they were so fantastic, but like they just couldn't, for whatever reason, whether it was ESPN who was like producing it. We never really got through the muck and the mire of that. And thank God for Paul, taking the risk that he did, and pitching us, and we're all like, "This sounds ridiculous." And fortunately for him, ridiculous, even half of ridiculous was better than what we were currently getting. And guys were kind of playing in spite of the league at the time. Like it was about playing with the boys and like, beating certain markets for like, I don't want to say bragging rights, but like you wanted to win the MLL championship. But like it was very much not about being seen, not about the money, not about like you knew you were going to sit on the tarmac for 4 hours. You knew you were going to get to the hotel, and like guys were going to have to like sleep in the same bed or something stupid like that because they messed up the rooms. Your stick bag gets lost. You knew it was going to be a nightmare for whatever reason. It just seemed like a black cloud was always floating over somebody, over your head when you were on an MLL trip. And Paul came to me. He's like, "Hey, listen, we'd love to have you in the PLL, and we think you're a big asset." And when he pitched me, I was like, "Dude, I was driving Paul from Brooklyn to practice every day, so I'd hear him on the calls, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything. This is, you're doing a business call. I'm just, I'm the chauffeur at the time." And then one day he was finally like, "Hey, listen, you've heard me on these calls. We'd love to have you in the league. I think you're a valuable asset." And that was really kind of him. He could have left me just to rust at the MLL level. And, I took it upon myself just because I was listening to the phone calls, and he'd have him on speaker. He wasn't shy about it, to let these younger guys know, that this is real. like this is going to help you guys, and like I'm listening and talk to people about insurance and all these venues and these things, and so I took it upon myself to kind of pull over a lot of the young talent, because these guys are like, it's Paul's like the guy, he's the $1 million man in sports. It's like, okay, that's great, but like he is trying to do good for everybody, and the guys who came over, we were treated to such an unbelievable experience. That 2019 summer, that 2019 camp, I'll never forget it, because one, I broke my neck, but two, it was so amazing getting there and just like seeing the hotel. Like, you look back at it, it was like, was it real? It was probably like a $15,000 like setup, but we'd never seen that before. Like we just never been treated to like actual media, cameras all over the place, people truly trying to treat us like pros. And we're all at IMG, and it was like this like energy in the air. We're like everybody's friends for right now. And Mike Rabel at the meeting before, like after everybody got their stuff and everybody's in the room, he goes, "This is the last time we're all going to be friends." He goes, "Tomorrow it's time to become a league." And I'm just so thankful to be a part of that initial phase, and everything thereafter was just so awesome. The green fly, finally getting photos of yourself. Like I remember like finding what photographers were at games, like, hey, like I'll pay you some money for like the pictures of like me playing my professional sport. I felt like such a dork, but it was a part of my, like, that's what I was doing for a living. I was coaching lacrosse. You wanted those assets to make yourself look better. And Paul knew that. And Paul said, like, these guys, if they want to stay, if I want to keep them in the game, they have to be able to make money off of their likeness. And he went out and he, out of pocket, did what he did for everybody. So it was, it was so refreshing, so awesome. Again, the MLL was great, but it was great for a different reason. It was great because, you were going to eat shit with your buddies. It was like, I don't want to say going to war, because that, like, going to war is a real thing, but like, it was kind of like you just knew you were going to be in the suck. You were going to all laugh about it. You were going to talk about it in the group chat. You're going to have a couple beers, have a couple funny stories. Half the team was going to miss their flights and, wind up in the red on the day. So, that was the time I look back on very fondly, but I never told anybody I played pro lacrosse. Never. My best friend before he passed away always had introduced me as, this is my best friend, Jerry, the pro lacrosse player. And I would always like, a side note story, he ran a very, very profitable and great liquor store here in New Jersey. And anybody that knows the vacation areas of New Jersey, there's Route 35 down the shore, and they're like these mansions on the beach. And if you're from New Jersey, there's a grocery store called ShopRite, and this one guy owns all. John Sumas. He's a multi-billionaire and a super nice guy. He's, because I work from home, and he was like, I'm an athlete. He's like, hey man, I got to drive down the shore. You want to hop in the van and come with me? I'm like, sure, I'll go for a ride with you. So we drive down the shore. We go to this guy, John Sumas's house, and I meet his wife, and my buddy goes, this is Jerry Ragonese, my pro lacrosse buddy. She goes, oh, do you know Ned Karate? I'm like, yeah, I play with Ned. And like in her head, she goes, oh, this guy's a delivery driver, and like takes $200 and like sticks it in my back pocket. Like basically pitying me because she knows how bad it was to play in the MLL from a financial standpoint. And I'm like, no, I can't take this. I can't take this. And she was like so over the top nice, but I'll never forget. That was the first time I felt like embarrassed for myself for being a pro lacrosse player. And then, like, of course, 4 years later, it was like, people are like, yo, you play for the, I remember having my Archer's bag, and they're like, yo, where'd you get that Archer's bag? You play for the PLL? I was like, dude, I was on at the bar. It was so awesome. Like, my buddies couldn't believe, because again, we always said the production value, if we could just get the production value right, lacrosse would explode. And that's what Paul went and did. He went and got the production value right, added the salt to the steak, so to speak. And that's why it's taken off so much. So in a long-winded way, that's how I got to where I'm at today.
That's a great take. And I got to tell you, hearing that was wonderful, because I'm visualizing, the TLN documentary and all the player social media of that first training camp and everything. And as a young player at the time, a guy going into college, that had a great impact on me, because we were able to see what the next level was. We were finally able to, have a visual on, this is a pro sport. And so, you're seeing that and experiencing that from the internal, but it's affecting a mass audience in a much greater way, because it's legitimacy. I mean, it added legitimacy to what was going on and what pro lacrosse was. And your story of not telling people you were a pro lacrosse player back in the MLL days. I've heard that a few other times, and that always set with me so strange. But to hear the explanation of that PLL compared to MLL is awesome, man. I mean, it's just awesome for the game and for the growth of the game, and then for your own experiences. I guess my last question for you, Jerry, and we'll milk this last bit of time here. In 4 minutes, give me your most memorable face-off battle. Is there a moment or a game or a circumstance where it just stuck out to you as one of your, grittiest, most enjoyable, maybe even toughest experiences on the field?
I think my toughest matchup was against my business partner now, Greg Gorenlian. They kind of threw is me and him versus in Charlotte, and I remember for a week after I was taking turf beads at from underneath my eyeball. I have a picture of it on my phone, way back in 2012, because we would just lock up and just spin and spin and spin and spin and spin. And Greg was the guy back then, so that was a nice coming home for me, and also he was my friend, so it was exciting and fun to play against each other, and I was just so happy to be out there and doing it with a guy of note and who happened to be my friend. But I think one of the funniest situations was it was Greg. Greg was nursing an injury, so I got to suit up with him when I was on the Lizards, and we were playing Florida in Chris Mattis. So it was all three of the Faceoff Academy going against each other, and it was ungodly hot. And Chris was the only guy suiting up that day, and I just remember me and Greg were we're gonna run him into the ground. We're just gonna tire him out. And it was so hot and so humid that there was rain's gonna come in, we don't know when, and we get into halftime and it just starts pouring. And if you knew anything about the MLL, there was no reschedule. It doesn't matter. They played in a tsunami one year. There was nobody the championship at Navy Stadium. They played in a tsunami. Nobody at the stands. Just guys just getting drenched. I think it was a 4-5 game. It was horrendous. So they're okay, there's lightning. We're waiting. Lightning. We're waiting. So it goes from 7 to 8 to 9, 10. Finally, they're 10:45. We can go out and play. And we're okay, nobody's there. The field's soaked. Nobody wants to. Everyone's dude, let's just get out of here. They're no, we have to finish the game. So playing 15 minutes, me and Mattis go out for a face off. We impact, we're locking up, and the lights turn off. Complete blackness, complete dark. It's 11 o'clock at night in August at Hofstra Stadium, and the light, because they were on auto timer, they blackout. And I'm screaming, I won the face-off! I won the face-off! It's and to this day, we had to wait another 40 minutes for the game. People were couldn't believe we I think they called the game. I can't remember, but that was the most true MLL funny, gritty, situation where you just had to put imagine a pitch, and as the ball's going to the batter, the whole stadium's Candlestick Park out, which is just the most MLL thing ever. But that is the most MLL thing, and that's the story that sticks out to me the most in the MLL.
It's a great one, man. Super unique. I might see if I can find a broadcast clip just to put over that.
Please, it was incredible. Good luck finding those tapes if they do exist.
I'm gonna have to do some digging there. Well, Jerry, man, really appreciate you being on here. Your time, you're a wealth of knowledge and a vivid storyteller. And I hope everyone else takes away what I did from this, man. But I really, really do appreciate your time and your willingness to jump on here.
Appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.